The Morgan Report with David Morgan.
David Morgan with themorganreport.com, week ending December 4th, 2020. Well, let's start off the stock market, which I like to do, and let's just go to the record that the NASDAQ 100 hit a new record this week, and the QQQs are consolidating at a high-level consolidation. Some of your FANG stocks are in a potential breakout triangle. That's Amazon and Facebook and Microsoft, to name three of them. And then the other thing I'd like to bring to everyone's attention vis-a-vis the stock market is the airlines. And the airline ETFs, many of the airlines are just killing it to the upside. And personally, I look at it almost as a gift to short. I don't know if I would short right now, but the fundamentals are not colliding, or the fundamentals are colliding with the price action in the airlines. Southwest just announced a layoff of, I think, 7,000 was yesterday or today. And the fundamentals for airlines are not good. But the stocks of the airlines are basically moving to the up rapidly. So it's real tough on a short. I'm not recommending that you do it, but I'm suggesting that it's not matching reality. And then on the general stock market, I've only mentioned this a couple times before, but stock market could be signaling that it's going to continue to move up, up, and up because the printing that's going on a lot of it goes into the stock market. And if it's going to be wild abandon from here on out, which looks like the most likely case, we may not get the correction that a lot of us expect. Now, I'm not totally in that camp yet. I'm just telling everybody that the market can fool you for a very long time. In fact, can make you insolvent if you're fundamentally trading only and you know it's overvalued. It can be overvalued for so long that you go broke. So that's something to bear in mind. I do think next year we're going to see much more action in all markets, particularly the stock market. I would guess it would be coming down, not up. Time will tell. And I also expect to see the metals do better in 2021 than they did this year, although both gold and silver year over year from January to January have actually done fairly well. Silver outperforming gold, at least as we do this video. In the next 3 weeks, things could change. So as you can see, I've been on the blog here. Remember these icons up here that are in this border, kind of hard to see. They're a little small, but if you go here to the YouTube channel,
Joining me today,
you can see the top line here. And remember, on this community feature, I take a fair amount of time to post during the week videos that I find of import that I think really are important to you, the followers on the free list, or my free newsletter, my free weekly perspective, whatever you want to call it. So what I like to do is point out a couple here this week that I just put up. This one with Chris Duane from like 8 years ago. It's very interesting playing it back because a lot of what he said in that first face-to-face meeting that I had with him, he's a man of conviction. A lot of what he said at that time, he continues to say today. And I find that rather refreshing. A couple of these, this small one here, a short film on the Great Reset, a young man from London. It's very short. It's about 4 minutes. I thought I did a good job. Food crisis, I continue to talk about. Will you be able to grow food in the future? This is from Adapt 2030, David Dubine. I've interviewed him and we'll interview him again for the podcast. This is one that I want to point out. This is from none other than James Corbett of thecorbettreport.com. James is right on up there, probably in the top, certainly in the top 5 of people that I follow and think are probably most valuable to society at large, and definitely outside of mainstream thinking, critical thinking. Anyway, this is about the silver myth, about the Executive Order 11110. I have said in public and private many times that the U.S. note, in quotation marks, backed by silver was a myth. It wasn't true. There was no nothing in the executive order to tie silver to the quote-unquote new currency. I had it about 90% correct. I would say I'm giving myself that score. I did have some of it wrong, according to the deep verified research that you can check from James Corbett. But the main point is I've been very consistent that this thing about the silver-backed JFK dollar is not true. More about the Great Reset. So just something to point out, unless you know about this community part, you might overlook it. It's kind of my way to get stuff. Then a lot of these, by the way, I say a lot, but a fair amount of these have been taken down because they are rather controversial from YouTube's perspective. Just go through some of the highlight news. CNBC, obviously mainstream. Restaurant industry loses jobs for the first time since April. Well, they've been losing jobs probably all along, but this is basically showing that the restaurant business is declining even further. This is one that a great deal of the alt community is talking about, and that's the CARES Act provisions will expire after Christmas if there's not a new stimulus. And this is very concerning to a great deal, many Americans that are unemployed, underemployed, on forbearance. There's so many vectors here, but basically with the economic crisis, the collapse, it's caused a great deal of agony that's kind of been stalled off in some cases because of the stimulus, because of the forbearance, and because of the CARES Act. But that is probably coming to an end, which means some drastic changes probably in January. And I even hate to say it, but there'll probably be much more homeless and a lot more social unrest, depending on, even a stimulus deal probably isn't going to stop what's coming. It's a force of nature. It's not going to be stopped just by printing money, but they may try to stall it off. This is sort of an alt news site, and it talks about America's hidden depression. I don't know how hidden it is, but this is with, the Treasury Secretary. If Biden is elected, see what happens there. I'm going to make one further comment. What matters is there a recovery happening? And the answer is probably not. It talks about a depression as an apt description of what they're facing, especially folks in rural middle America who are parents. 700,000 Americans can be filing unemployment insurance coverage every week for 37 weeks, 9 months, plus 20 million people are still on the pre-pandemic unemployment rolls. What we've been telling you is government statistics, because of the way they're always been recorded, understate the red flags. The official unemployment rate has been dropping, but that's because it's never really counted the gig economy. Its data collection abilities have been severely crippled by the pandemic. And lots of people are falling out of the labor force and not looking for jobs, so they come off that statistical rolls. Straight from Reuters, the Reuters feed, global debt to hit 200 trillion. Global debt will reach 212 trillion or 265% of the world's annual economic output. By the end of the year, SP Global has forecast, although it doesn't expect a crisis anytime soon. Well, if we're not in a crisis now, I don't know what we are, but I do believe it's going to get worse, as I just outlined on the previous articles. The projected 14% surge in global debt to GDP in 2020 is unlikely to cause a near-term debt crisis. So we're talking, this is what the banks are seeing. Provided economies recover, vaccines are widely distributed, interest rates remain very low, and borrowing behavior moderates, according to the report. So basically that paragraph's all about the banks. It's really not about, it's Wall Street, London, the money elites really, or high net worth people. It's really not about what's happening on Main Street. And of course we hear about China. This is from Bloomberg. China's state firms once deemed safe, now rocked by defaults. So they're having their own problems over there. Rising defaults in China state firms are showing the need for bond investors to be much savvier about those borrowers. No easy feat in a country where government decision and business operations lack transparency. 5 state-linked companies, from a coal miner to a top chip maker and an auto firm with ties to BMW, have defaulted for the first time in the offshore bond market this year. I've always said the bond market is the key to the kingdom, not just sovereign bonds like United States Treasuries, which is the king and queen of the entire debt system, but also corporates. And I think we are in for a big surprise. In fact, I made a call on my private service that I think the bond market has finally topped. I've called that top incorrectly a couple times over the years. I don't do it every week, but I think I may be right this time. Continuing on China, this is from the AP. U.S. Intelligence Director says China is top threat to America. China poses the greatest threat to America and the rest of the free world since World War II, outgoing National Intelligence Director John Ratcliffe said Thursday as the Trump administration wraps up anti-Chinese rhetoric pressure President-elect Joe Biden to be tough on Beijing. We'll see what happens along those lines. I call its approach of economic espionage replicate and replace, Ratcliffe said. China robs U.S. companies of their intellectual property, replicates the technology, then replaces the U.S. firms in the global marketplace. And that's pretty accurate. And just to bring it home, this is from Reuters again. Some sign of U.S. relations damaged beyond repair. China's media warns. So it's basically a reiteration of what I just showed you on the previous article. China's ambassador to the United States became the latest of the Asian nation's senior officials to signal desire to reset the increasingly confrontational relationship as U.S. President Joe Biden prepares to take office in January. And let me just add on there that I'm well aware of the vote recount and everything else that's going on. I like to stay apolitical as possible, so I'm just reading off the screen here. So it's not misstated, but I'm not certain what's going to happen January 20th. I'll just put it in that context. And I would say you might want to watch this video from goldsilver.com. Where is this headed? Mike does a great job always, and this one I think is one that talks about the vaccines, health transports, massive stimulus, and where it's all going with Jeff Clark and Chris Martenson, 2 people I know well. Well, I know Jeff well, and I know Mike well. I've met Chris. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to say, remember, there's nothing more powerful than the truth. I remember my early days on this pursuit, hearing Mr. Jim Dine say, all that exists in the universe is truth or resistance to it. We need to hear both sides, whether or not you agree. The truth is objective. The truth doesn't have an agenda. The truth is the truth. So whatever the truth is about the elections, and I'm not going to comment one way or the other because I don't know what the truth is, but the truth is there. Whether or not we're able to determine it or not, I'm not certain. But the truth is objective again. Doesn't have an agenda. So a lot of people around the election have agendas, both sides. And that I think you can make a good argument about. But is the truth what? And that, again, will be determined one way or another. Unfortunately, I see a division coming that's been coming for quite some time. I'm not seeing anything that all of you are not seeing. It just is disheartening in a lot of ways because living in the same land gives you some cohesion, some coherence, some gathering of like-mindedness just because you share the same ground. But unfortunately, the ideologies have been split and emphasized over and over again, particularly by the mainstream, where certain views are given, let's say, more credence by the mainstream than other views by the mainstream. Regardless of your thoughts one way or the other, remember the truth is neutral, and that's what we should strive for. I always try to look at both sides and determine to the best of my ability. That's it for this week. I'll be back probably next week, audio only. I will be gone for the entire week next week and limited access to anything on the internet. So I'll probably be doing this update on Sunday rather than on Friday. I wish you all well as we move toward the holiday season.